Okay, chapter 4, section 1. We're going to finish up the rest of the examples here in Trig. So, I kind of threw one like this already on your worksheet from Friday, where you had to change both A and B. So let's take a look of how that's actually done. I wanted to see if you guys can do it, expand your minds a little bit. So I already have labeled here that A is -2, B is 3. So I need to find what the period's going to be of this graph and what my new interval is going to be. And then I'm going to need to find the midpoint and the 2 quarter points. So the period, we know we use 2 pi over b. So that's going to equal 2 pi over 3. We can simplify that, so that is actually the period right there. So that means my interval is going between 0 and 2 pi over 3. So that's going to be your new interval. So then our midpoint is going to be 1/2 times 0 plus 2 pi over 3. So it's going to be half of 2 pi over 3, which is going to equal 2 pi over 6, which would then equal pi over 3. Quarter point 1 is going to be half of 0 plus pi over 3. So it's going to be half of pi over 3, which is just going to equal pi over 6. And then Q2 is going to be 1/2 of pi over 3, because that's my midpoint, plus 2 pi over 3. So half of pi over 3 plus 2 pi over 3 is going to be 1/2 of 3 pi over 3, which would then be half of pi, which would then be pi over 2. So my first point's going to be 0. My second point's going to be pi over 6. My third point is going to be pi over 3. And then fourth point's pi over 2. Fifth point is 2 pi over 3. So if we look on this scale, I went ahead and gave us our original points if we were to graph the parent function. We're going to see where these points end up compared to what our parent function's would be if we needed it. So, my first point is 0. Since my A is -2, I'm going to go down to my minimum point first. So that second point is pi over 6. So this right here is pi over 2. This line would be pi over 4. Pi over 6 is going to be somewhere in there. So pi over 6, and since we went negative, it's going to drop down to its minimum first. Then my second point is pi over 3. We know it's a little bit more than pi over 4. So it's going to be on the other side of pi over 4, and that would be pi over 3. And I'm going to be back at 0. So 0 min 0. Then my second quarter point is pi over 2. So that's going to be at my max. And then my last point, my 2 pi over 3, 2/3, is going to be on this other side of the half. And that's going to be back at 0. So our graph is real tiny. We're going to go down first because this is negative. Then we're going to go up. And then we're going to go back down. And that is your graph. So it's real close to the 0 line. It's squished. If we were to graph the home function, the parent function, 0, max, 0, 0, max, 0, min, 0. This is what we're comparing against in blue. So in red is the graph that we wanted to graph. In blue is your parent function. So we can see the difference. Second example is to graph y equals a cosine bx, but this time b is going to be a multiple of pi. So again, we have a equals -3 and b equals pi. So we need to find the period. So the period is going to equal 2 pi over b, which is pi. So my pi's cancel, and I'm left with a whole number. Yay, no pi to deal with in this case. I need to find my interval is now going to be between 0 and 2. And then the midpoint, I'm going to take 1/2 of 0 plus 2, which is going to be 1/2 of 2, which is just going to equal 1. 1/4 is going to be 1/2 of 0 plus 1, which is just going to be 1/2. And then 2, 1/2 of 1 plus 2, which would technically be 3 times 1/2, which would then be 3/2. So my first point is going to be 0. My last point is going to be 2. My middle point is 1. And then I have 1/2. And I have 3/2. So this is going to be our graph. Again, this is negative. And since we were dealing with cosine, remember cosine usually starts on its maximum point. But since it's negative, we're going to start on our minimum point. So at 0, we're going to be at -3. At 1/2, we're going to be at 0. At 1, we're going to be at our maximum of 3. Then we're going to be back at 0, and then we'll be back down to our minimum. So our graph is going to look like this. And that will be your graph for y equals -3 cosine pi x. Last example for today is to determine an equation based off the graph. So we have this graph. It starts at -2, it goes up, its maximum point's at 2, and it's going to end at -2. So first thing you should ask yourself is, where did we start? Did we start at 0 or did we start at a maximum or minimum? We started at a minimum. So that means that we are dealing with cosine. That's going to tell us our function. What is the highest point? Our highest point is 2. So a is going to equal 2. But did we start on our minimum or maximum? As we stated, we started on our minimum. So that means we're going to have a -a. My interval then goes between 0 and 4 pi. So that means the period is 4 pi, but I need to find b for my equation. So we're going to work backwards. We know what the period is. 4 pi is going to end up equaling 2 pi over b. Since b is on the bottom, we're going to switch places. b is going to equal 2 pi over 4 pi. Pi's are going to cancel. 2 divided by 4 is 1/2. So your equation for this graph, put it all together, y is going to equal -2, -a. We're dealing with cosine. Our b is 1/2, and then we're just going to attach an x. So these are the main questions you want to ask yourself for when we're dealing with just an amplitude and a period change. And then you're just going to form it all together for your equation. Your homework for tonight is page 149, 24 to 34 even.